looked at what Luc Montagnier had said, and I read Bobby Kennedy's book on Fauci, was that actually the argument against HIV being causal was a lot higher quality than I had understood. Right? That it being a real virus, a fellow traveler of a disease that was chemically triggered, that is at least a highly plausible hypothesis. And with Anthony Fauci playing his role, that was inconvenient for what he was trying to accomplish.
There's also ignoring a very important factor in AIDS, which is party drugs.
That is the competing hypothesis. And for those who think that this is a preposterous allegation, you should look at this evidence. The evidence is surprisingly compelling. And, you know, if your mind resists that, realize that Luc Montagnier, who got a Nobel Prize for the discovery of HIV, later in life became convinced that the thing for which he got the Nobel Prize was not nearly as important as he had imagined. He believed that HIV was not the causal element. So,
with AZT, with AIDS, it was killing people. So now you have people dying from AIDS. And you have this medication, which Fauci in the 1980s was famously quoted as saying, is the only reason why we use only one medication is because the only medication that's been proven to be both safe and effective.
Right.
Where have you heard that before?
Right. COVID was a rerun of the AIDS chapter with AZT.
But the AIDS chapter seems even more terrifying, because if the initial treatment was AZT, and we know AZT kills people, you're taking someone who has a compromised immune system, and your response to that was give them something that's going to kill them quicker, and then say there's a giant crisis. And this is what Duesberg was demonized for.
Yeah. I agree.
Warned the world that there is an experimental drug called remdesivir that will be responsible for their death. Yeah, I explained the entire way in which everyone with COVID-19 being diagnosed in the hospital, how they died between day 1 and day 9. Everybody died on day 9 of a 10-day treatment with remdesivir. Yeah, they called it an antiviral drug. Dr. Anthony Fauci claimed in May of 2020 it was found safe and effective in a drug trial in Africa a year earlier in 2019. And he hyperlinked the study in his memo to all hospitals. I happened to be retired. I opened the link to read the study about this drug I'd never heard of, and imagine my shock that in that trial in Africa a year before COVID, it killed 53% of all people they gave it to. And the safety board for the trial had suspended the use of remdesivir in that trial at month 6 and notified the funders that this drug is too deadly and too toxic. We're not using it anymore against Ebola patients. Guess who I discovered in that research study was the funder of that Ebola trial in Africa in 2019.
Oh.
Dr. Anthony Fauci and his department at the NIH.
Ah.
So he lied to the entire Congress, lied to the entire American people, and told you that the drug was found safe and effective against Ebola, when in fact the Independent Safety Board deemed it too deadly, too toxic, and had pulled it from the trial. America should be furious.
Remember that in 2018, remdesivir, one of my favorite targets, remdesivir was too unethical to put into Ebola clinical trials in Africa because it had a 53% kill rate published in medical journals. Ebola doesn't have a 53% kill rate, but it was chosen in April and May of 2020 to be the drug of choice to treat COVID. This drug was too unethical to use in an African clinical trial because it was killing 53% of the people that it was given to. And we had Anthony Fauci, Deborah Birx sitting next to the president going, we need to use remdesivir, despite the fact that the World Health Organization said it was unethical to use it. Here's the problem. The problem is, as long as the financial interest that dictates what product is going to be promoted is the one making the declaration of the pandemic, we have no possibility for accountability. We have no possibility for justice. And what we do is we allow people who were formed out of the eugenics office, Carnegie Mellon in 1913, that same group of people that were the same group of people that established the World Health Organization in 1953, that same group of people are the ones who are making this decision. And I don't know how you feel about eugenics, but I have a problem with it.
We did a whole set of shows on the depopulation agenda. If you go back and you look at the formation of the World Health Organization, you see that it is the outgrowth of the 1913 eugenics office at Cold Spring Harbor Labs. That was, by the way, funded by Carnegie. The World Health Organization's founding executive director, was a concentration camp survivor who 5 years into the World Health Organization said the role of the World Health Organization in 1955 was for population control and population suppression, that eugenics was a necessary part of that process. But if you fast forward to 1955, the first Secretary General of the World Health Organization was appointed by the Rockefeller Foundation. He was actually selected out of the Dachau concentration camp. This program at Cold Spring Harbor Labs has been administered since 1913, expressly. And every step along the way has been about removing the population. Now, the acceleration of this particular program is about the fact that in 2028, the Social Security Administration becomes illiquid. And it's much easier not to pay people because they're dead than to have the populist uprising associated with the election in 2028 when the Social Security Administration Trust Fund goes to zero.
Pretty sure there was over 100. I don't know if it was closer to 200. There was a lot of people in the room. And after I signed some books and I wrote a couple of books. That's therealcdc.com. I always forget to say that. Somebody came up and said, "Can I tell you a story?" I was like, "Yeah, of course you can." Well, I was there when they. She said her sister, and she was rather young. I'm trying to remember the details. Details don't matter. She said her sister was there, and she kind of was like standing off to the side, and the doctor came in to talk to the nurse, and the doctor said, "Yeah, give her the second round of remdesivir," and the nurse said, "Doctor, she has 4 young children." And the doctor said, "Oh, okay, never mind. No more remdesivir." So that shows that both the nurse and the doctor knew that they were killing people. But because she had 4 kids, we're not going to kill her. But if she didn't have the kids, give her the drugs, kill her anyway. This is what we're left with in terms of personalities and behaviors and ethos of the staff at hospitals. It's sad. It's really sad.
entity or a organization. And what I found was at the heart of the coding system, it actually goes back to the WHO. In 1948, the UN and the WHO split off. The UN was the military arm and the WHO was the health arm. But it basically, the whole statistical coding system, it started out as a eugenics monitoring system, a statistical monitoring system by eugenicists who were the elites of their time. Sir Francis Galton was, the father of eugenics, and he was a statistician. And Charles Darwin, who created the whole, idea of theory of evolution, his cousin was Francis Galton. So they sort of built on each other's theories, and so what we basically have now is a eugenics system, and that's what vaccines are. And there was actually an office that I write about this in my book. This was in the early 1900s. This was forming up. There was a eugenicist named Charles Davenport who helped found, through Carnegie money, Rockefeller money, the people who are behind the whole Western medicine system, the whole oil cartel, the whole Fed. Right. All of those people were at the source of, eugenics. They were in eugenics clubs. They were in statistics clubs, who were, also the elite of their time. And so it was, looked well upon to be part of this. And internationally, at the time, they had flu epidemics. So like in France, they called it La Grippe. Grippe, La Grippe. And that's why they created this statistical monitoring system, because physicians had different ways in different countries across the world of talking about things. And they wanted to know how many people were dying of different things in their country. So it was all about monitoring causes of death internationally. And there was this really evil statistician guy who helped create it. His name was William Farr. He's actually the guy who came up with 2 weeks to flatten the curve that was used during COVID-19. And he worked in a vital statistics office. And if you look, you will still see vital statistics all over a lot of this nefarious stuff. The UN agenda, the WHO agenda, the WEF stuff, because that is who is ultimately at the top pulling all these strings. But that's ultimately where it comes from. And I was just shocked to realize that going back that far, the whole, there was in Cold Springs Harbor, New York, there was a eugenics records office that was created in the U.S., and the AMA and the CDC had their offices there. The Cancer Society, I think, set up screenings for people, and they did it because they knew that there was a lot of immigrants coming over, and so all the immigrants, they wanted to make sure that they could screen them. And remember, this is money coming from Carnegie and Harriman and eugenicists. So like the Harriman Railroad, they were actually using the eugenics records office to screen all of these people so that they could sterilize people and take out bloodlines without their knowledge. And so it's actually been written in different documents from different authors that they suspected that this eugenics records office and the screening specifically for cancer, which then evolved into screening your children for any sort of growth, anything. It's all about getting this vital statistics data, which is your census, your income, any sort of biometrics data, any sort of birth, marriage record data, all layering all of that on top of each other in order to track individual bloodlines for the purposes of eugenics. And they did it under the guise of cancer screening, or health screening.